People assume financial crimes are loud. They imagine alarms, sudden arrests, dramatic accusations across glass conference rooms. In reality, the most dangerous thefts happen quietly, hidden inside spreadsheets no one bothers to open, buried under file names that look boring enough to ignore. My name is Lily. And the day I discovered $6 million hidden inside my own company, no one was shouting. No one was running. Everyone was smiling. That's what scared me most. I was the operations director of a mid-sized corporate services firm. We handled compliance, vendor management, and internal audits for larger companies, ironically, the kind of work designed to prevent exactly what was happening to us. I didn't run the company alone. There were executives, managers, account leads, and there was Shin. Shin wasn't my boss. He wasn't my partner either. He was something more dangerous. He controlled money flows. Officially, he was head of internal finance. Trusted, experienced, praised for keeping things smooth. Clients liked him. The board liked him. And for years, I had no reason not to like him too. Until one routine check changed everything. The discovery didn't come from suspicion. It came from boredom. Late one evening, I stayed back to finish an overdue internal reconciliation. Nothing urgent. Just verifying old vendor payments against archived records before an external audit. That's when I noticed the mismatch. One account line didn't balance. At first, I assumed it was timing, pending payments, delayed postings. That happens. But when I traced the entry backward, something felt wrong. The funds weren't missing. They were displaced. I followed the trail. 3 layers deep. The account name changed slightly each time. The description stayed vague. The dates were spaced just far enough apart to avoid attention. And when I added it all up, my stomach tightened. $6 million. Not withdrawn. Not stolen outright. Hidden. Sitting across a web of internal holding accounts that technically belonged to the company, but weren't visible in standard summaries. It was clever. Too clever to be accidental. I didn't panic. Panic makes noise. Instead, I saved the file and closed everything. The next morning, Shin walked into the office cheerful, coffee in hand, greeting everyone like always. "You're early," he said when he saw me. "Couldn't sleep," I replied. He smiled. That usually means something big's coming. He had no idea how right he was. For the next 2 days, I said nothing. I watched. Meetings went on as usual. Shin presented clean reports. Numbers looked healthy. No red flags, unless you knew exactly where to look. And I did. I quietly pulled older files. Archived ledgers. Deprecated account mappings. The pattern became clear. The money had been moved gradually over 2 years. Always in amounts just small enough to blend in. Always reclassified under temporary operational buffers. Always approved internally by Shin. But here was the detail that made my hands go cold. Those accounts required dual authorization to be accessed. One from finance. One from operations. Which meant my credentials had been used. Without my knowledge. I checked the access logs. Someone had mirrored my approval token months ago during a system upgrade I'd barely paid attention to. This wasn't just theft. It was impersonation. That night, I called Lila, our senior internal auditor. "I need you to review something," I said. Quietly. Off record. She didn't hesitate. The next day, she confirmed what I already knew. "This isn't sloppy," she said. "It's deliberate. And whoever did it assumed no one would ever audit internally. Can it be reversed?" I asked. She paused. "The money hasn't left the company. But if they get nervous, it could disappear fast." That's when I understood the timing. Shin wasn't just hiding money. He was preparing to move it. Probably during the upcoming restructuring the board had already approved in principle. A perfect distraction. That afternoon, Shin stopped by my office. "Everything good?" he asked casually. "Busy," I said. "Good," he replied. "Next month will be transformative." I looked up at him. "Transformative how?" He smiled. "You'll see." I smiled back. Because I already had. And what Shin didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know. was that the file he'd hidden the money inside was the one file I personally archived years ago. The one with a rule he had never bothered to read. A rule that didn't just expose the money. It exposed whoever touched it last. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to warn him. I was going to let him make his move. Because once he did, there would be no way to explain where that $6 million had been hiding. Once I knew the money was real, I stopped looking at the numbers like an accountant. I started looking at them like a timeline. Shin hadn't hidden the $6 million all at once. That would have been reckless. He had layered it, small reallocations spread across quarters, each one buried under operational language that sounded boring enough to discourage curiosity. Temporary buffers. Internal stabilization. Deferred vendor alignment. Words designed to lull. The more I traced the movement, the clearer his endgame became. The upcoming restructuring wasn't just a distraction. It was his exit ramp. A moment when accounts would be consolidated, explanations would be rushed, and no one would have the appetite to slow things down. That's when the money would vanish. I didn't tell the board. I didn't alert legal. Not yet. Once you expose something like this too early, the person responsible gets defensive. Defensive people erase evidence. Instead, I focused on control. First, I locked my credentials. Quietly. During a scheduled system maintenance window, I requested a reset under the pretext of tightening audit protocols for the upcoming external review. IT approved it without question. They always did. That token Shin had been using was dead. If he tried to move the money now, he'd leave fingerprints. Next, I sat down with Lila again. I need you to prepare a shadow audit, I said. Not a report. A reconstruction. She frowned slightly. That takes time. Take it, I said. But don't publish anything. I want a narrative, not a spreadsheet. She understood exactly what I meant. A few days later, Shin called an executive meeting. He stood at the front of the room, confident as ever, speaking about efficiency and future-proofing. He explained that certain internal accounts would be consolidated to improve transparency. The irony almost made me laugh. As part of this, he said, we'll need expedited approvals so we don't slow momentum. I met his eyes briefly. Expedited approvals still require proper authorization, I said calmly. Of course, he replied quickly. This is just housekeeping. Housekeeping. The meeting ended. People dispersed. But Shin lingered. You seem tense, he said quietly. Everything okay? Just making sure we don't miss anything, I replied. He smiled. You always were thorough. That night, Lila sent me the reconstruction. It was devastating. She had mapped every movement of the $6 million to a specific approval path. Dates, times, devices, even location metadata from login records. Every path led to Shin. No ambiguity. No shared blame. No plausible deniability. But the most important detail sat at the bottom of her summary. He hasn't moved the money yet, she wrote. Which means he thinks he's safe. That told me everything. Shin was waiting for one last thing. Board-level cover. The restructuring proposal was scheduled for a final vote the following Friday. Once approved, he could justify sweeping transfers as alignment adjustments. I decided to give him exactly what he expected. At the next board prep session, I raised no objections. I asked no probing questions. I even supported the language around consolidation. Shin watched me closely. When I nodded along, his shoulders relaxed. On Thursday evening, my phone buzzed. A system alert. Pending transaction request detected. Not executed yet. Just staged. I checked the details. Destination: external clearing account. Amount: $6 million. Initiator: Shin. And, because of the credential lock, the system flagged it as incomplete, awaiting secondary authorization. Mine. Shin came to my office 10 minutes later. Quick thing, he said casually, leaning against the doorframe. I need your approval on a cleanup transfer. Just formalities. I looked at him. How much? I asked. He didn't hesitate. $6 million. There it was. Not hidden. Not layered. Just said out loud. What account? I asked. He named it. The one he thought I'd never find. I paused just long enough to make him uncomfortable. Send it through, I said finally. I'll review it. His smile returned instantly. Perfect. He left. I didn't approve it. I didn't reject it either. I forwarded the request to Lila. Then I forwarded everything else to legal. Not as an accusation. As a question. What happens, I asked, when hidden funds are reclassified without disclosure and impersonated credentials are involved? Legal replied within the hour. Immediate action, they said. And no private resolution. Friday morning, the board meeting began as scheduled. Shin looked confident. Relaxed. Certain. He believed he was minutes away from turning invisible money into real money. What he didn't realize was that the moment he submitted that request, the company's silence ended. The board meeting started like any other. Coffee on the table. Tablets open. Slides queued. Shin sat comfortably at the far end, already flipping through his notes, already planning how the consolidation vote would clear the last obstacle between him and the money. I watched him carefully. He wasn't nervous. People who think they've hidden something well rarely are. The agenda moved quickly. Routine approvals. Minor questions. No resistance. When the restructuring proposal came up, Shin took the floor with confidence. This is a cleanup, he said. Nothing more. Aligning accounts, reducing noise. A few board members nodded. Then legal raised a hand. I'm going to pause us here, the general counsel said calmly. Shin turned, surprised. Is there an issue? There's a question, she replied. About $6 million. The room shifted. Not dramatically. Just enough. Shin smiled politely. That's part of the consolidation. Legal didn't argue. She projected a single file onto the screen. A ledger. Then another screen. Access logs. Then another. Authorization trails. The room went very quiet. This money, legal said, has been reclassified repeatedly over 2 years, hidden from standard reporting, and staged for external transfer without disclosure. Shin straightened in his chair. That's inaccurate. Legal clicked once more. Login metadata appeared. Device IDs. Location stamps. Approval tokens. Including mine. And, she continued, secondary authorization credentials were mirrored without consent. All eyes turned to me. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Lila stood up from the side of the room. We reconstructed the movement, she said. Every step. Every approval. There's no ambiguity. The chair of the board leaned forward. Shin, he said quietly, explain why this money was hidden. Shin opened his mouth. Closed it. Then tried again. It was operational, he said. Temporary. Then why wasn't it disclosed? Another board member asked. And why was it staged for external transfer last night? Legal added. Silence. Not defensive silence. Defeated silence. The chair exhaled slowly. This meeting is adjourned, he said. Shin remained seated. Everyone else was asked to leave. I stood with them. As I passed Shin, he looked up at me. You knew, he said. Yes, I replied. You let it happen. I let you reveal it, I said calmly. The investigation was immediate. Shin was placed on administrative leave that afternoon. The $6 million was frozen. By the end of the week, the findings were finalized. Misrepresentation. Unauthorized credential use. Intent to transfer concealed funds. There was no negotiation. No internal settlement. No quiet exit. Shin was terminated for cause. His equity was clawed back under the company's misconduct provisions. The money returned fully to operational reserves. When the internal memo went out, it was factual and brief. No names dragged. No drama explained. Just truth. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. Clients stayed. Auditors praised the controls. The board initiated tighter oversight based largely on the systems I had already built. People asked me how I stayed calm through all of it. The answer was simple. I wasn't calm. I was prepared. Shin thought hiding money meant control. He forgot that hidden things only stay hidden until someone opens the right file. He believed silence would protect him. It didn't. The $6 million didn't expose itself. He did. And when it did, The company didn't panic. It corrected. That's the difference between theft and discipline. Between assumption and proof. They hid $6 million in company accounts. I found it in one file. And once it was found, there was nowhere left for it to go.